What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. So another Tennocon has come and gone. However, while it was all going on, we got our latest Prime release. It's a frame I've been looking forward to for quite a while, the Queen of the Cats, Khora Prime. Khora is a frame I've enjoyed for a long time. However, due to how close to it's always been to sort of Prime release, I've been hesitant to stick any Umbral Former onto her, and that has severely limited my build variety. In fact, the non-Prime, non-Umbral version of one of the builds in this video on the non-Prime frame has 3 empty mod slots and at least 1 unranked mod, so going from that to the Prime has been brilliant. However, before we go into any builds, let's do like a 30-second recap of what Khora does. First ability, whip stuff. Second ability, chains a bunch of enemies together, drags them into a group so you can whip stuff. The third commands Venari to attack for you, restore your shields or heal you. 4 puts up a spiky dome that catches enemies in it. There's a lot more nuance than that to her abilities, however this is the sort of very top level description of that. And we will talk about the important when it comes to the builds. Because we have 2 builds here, let's take a look at the first one, talk a little bit about how to play it and what that build is for. So let's start with probably the build that is by far the most damage and arguably the one that plays closest to Khora's intended design, and that is the Whip Claw focus build. First off, quick explanation. 3 Umbral Formers are on here is purely so I can put both builds on the same frame. You can run either build with 2 Umbrals just fine. This is purely so I can run stuff in wrong polarities and have them all on the same frame. So this build, triple Umbral adaptation for survivability and power strength, stretches on here for range for our Whip Claw and our Ensnare, max efficiency with max fleeting, as little drain as possible for Gloom, accumulating Whip Claws to further boost our whipping damage, and then Prime sure-footed because knockdown is worse than ever with the new XMI. We are going to be helmeting off her 4 for Gloom. I know it's kind of a boring choice at this point, but that is actually a topic for another video. Naramon's our focus skill here because we are relying on the combo counter from that to enhance our Whip Claw damage. We then also have Guardian for extra armor and Energize for energy because constantly whipping can get expensive quickly. Who knew you had to pay a little bit extra for a bit of whipping, eh? There is one thing that does need touching on here, and that is the fact that you do need a melee weapon to be effectively a stat stick for boosting the damage of Whip Claw. There's 2 ways to go about this, a raw damage build and a crit build. Personally, I prefer the crit build, and honestly it's the easiest one to get a Riven for. For constant red crits you need above 270% critical chance, which means any melee weapon with a 1.2 disposition with 2 stats and a negative can roll enough crit chance. The second stat is fairly forgiving. I've got critical damage, which you can never really go wrong with. Straight up damage works, plus slash. Combo duration also works if you want to potentially get with Naramon. It's risky, but it is doable. The main one that you really want to get is crit chance above that 270% for nice consistent crits. There's a couple of negatives to avoid like the plague, minus status chance because we want enormous slash procs to do huge damage, naturally minus slash is on that list as well, minus combo counter, they're absolutely the ones to avoid. Then the rest of the melee is pretty simple after the Riven, both sacrificial mods, Spoiled Strike, Blood Rush, Weeping Runes, Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might. Let's quickly touch on Venari too, because honestly she does a pretty good amount of damage when you actually go and mod it up. Link Health and Armor for survivability, Bite and Maul as our damage and crit mods, Venom Teeth and Frost Maul for viral damage. Swipe's going to hit multiple targets at once. That's also going to work with Hunter Recovery, making her healing way more reliable. Primed Animal Instinct for enemy radar and loot radar, and Hunter Synergy to link with your primary weapon. If you have a weapon with more than 47% crit, Venari will have more than 100% critical chance, and bearing in mind he has a 6.4 times damage multiplier, more reliable crits is a huge bonus to Venari's damage. Now I know all of this sounds like an awful lot to set up. Well honestly, it's actually a really simple build to play despite all of that. Press 1 to whip enemies, and enemies die. Keep doing that to build up accumulating Whip Claw and do absolutely ridiculous damage. You can see on screen that we're up against reasonably high level enemies and just blowing through them with ease. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to put a couple of clips of what we do to the Acolytes because, well, when you get a slash proc, it kind of feels borderline illegal what we do to them. I find this build, though, to be a whole ton of fun to play. Seeing damage in the millions on enemies that are this tanky is brilliant, and demolishing Acolytes is so much fun. When you start getting into super high level outside of a couple of guns, you don't really often play too much from a ranged perspective. However, this Khora build makes you pretty much immune to a lot of the stuff that is kind of annoying right now. You get more time to deal with and avoid XMI stuff. It's easier to avoid any of the super annoying stuff from the Acolytes, especially since your survivability doesn't hinge entirely on abilities, and the ability to nuke groups either with Whipclaw on its own, or if you combine Ensnare with Whipclaw, you can take entire groups. It's a super effective build and one of the most fun ones I've played in a very fair while. One thing to note though, don't try and whip the enemies directly, because more often than not the whip will miss. Try and hit the ground close to them, kind of like you would with an AoE weapon, and you will find the whip to be infinitely more reliable. The second build is actually even easier to explain than the first, and this is the one I've been wanting to put together for a while, and that is the Swiss Army Brick Khora build. A bit of a strange name, but bear with me a bit. Triple Umbral, Adaptation again, super high strength, Blind Rage and Transient Fortitude, Gladiator Resolve for the health and Mini Blood Rush for our melee. Carnis Carapace is going to give us more health and armor, as well as the set bonus to work with any heavy attacking melee that we've got. Prime Sure-Footed to deal with any, the infinitely incoming knockdown. Arcanes again, Guardian for more armor, and we're going to go with Avenger for some crit chance memes. This time for our helmet, we're going to slap Eclipse on there for an enormous damage buff in the situations we need it. Honestly, that's basically it for this one, so let me explain the name a little bit. This isn't really there to use abilities at all, aside from the situational use of Eclipse. Brick frames usually aren't more than slapping on a load of survivability on a frame and calling it a day. Inaros obviously comes to mind when, it comes to the truest of bricks. So what makes Khora different? Well, we're boosting Venari's special attack through the use of the strength mods, giving us not only great damage and killing power to sort of low to mid level, but obviously we get the completely free healing through Hunter Recovery, giving us some great additional survivability, and actually allows us to drop Gloom for once. We're also going to use the strength mods to boost the passive movement speed that Khora gets from having Venari alive, which while it's not modded to make maximum use of that speed here, it's enough that it's notable increase to speed and allows us to move through the map quicker. So we have Loot Radar, Enemy Radar, damage boost, a huge damage boost at that, healing from a source that's not Gloom for once, and that passive run speed bonus. It's a lot of extra features for a frame that is otherwise built to be kind of a brick. But the great thing is that unlike a lot of frames, you have an amazing amount of survivability. This is easily survivable enough for Steel Path, or to face tank the Angel mini-boss on the Zaraman, or the Sentience on the ship in Railjack. She can do it all with ease. In fact, I've basically taken to slapping on a Brahma, running around the Zaraman, breaking every crate in sight, using double animal instinct to see every box on the ship, and the way you gain rep on the Zaraman, this is actually a hugely effective tactic. I've also been farming Sentience to try and upgrade the Protofire armor that you can actually see on my Khora. I've been kind of lazy and not actually done it, but Khora Prime tanks them all with ease, and the massive damage buff from Eclipse, buffing our damage to silly levels. It absolutely blows through them. I'm so glad that I finally upgraded from the 3 empty monsters version of this build to the full one, because she might be my main for the foreseeable future. So after all the build talk, and some of the talk about how to play those builds, what's my overall thoughts on Khora Prime? Well, style-wise, I'm not a fan of the Prime helmets, and the metal channel is a bit too bright for my liking. She does look great though, and her Prime is a decent upgrade on the standard frame. Khora was in a weird spot for me, a frame I really enjoyed, but just too close for a Prime for me to really want to slap those umbrals on and push the builds. But now I've had the opportunity to do that, she is one of my favourite frames by far. Whether you want to whip your way through a mission doing frankly absurd damage, or whether you want a super speedy brick you can Netflix and Warframe to. Although, who does Netflix anymore, am I right? She can do it all though. She is an incredible looking and versatile frame, and one that I'm enjoying a hell of a lot. So I hope you enjoyed my look at Khora Prime. I do have a couple of builds in the works for some other frames. I doubt I will do video on Khora Prime's weapons because, well, the Hystrix kinda sucks as far as I can tell. And the dual carries, I mean, it's a Prime dual sword, they kill stuff good, but that's kind of about as interesting as those things are. Honestly, I don't think they really deserve a video. However, I will be back on the YouTubes with another frame build soon, TM. So many thanks for watching this one. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I shall catch you in the next video.